Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Improv Network podcast. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wieck.
And we're very excited to be officially streaming for the very first time as part of the Improv Network. Hi, Kurt. This is Kurt's favorite show, and he will follow it no matter where it goes. We are on the Improv Network's Facebook page, and we're also streaming to Improv FAQ on YouTube, where you can find additional programming. You can also go to the improvnetwork.org and visit the Improv FAQ tab or page there and see a collection of our additional content, as well as all the other things that Improv Network has to offer. Happy New Year, Bob.
Happy New Year, bud. So, 2021, how's it treating you so far?
Oh, boy, did it come out swinging.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, man. I mean, not for me personally, but obviously just all the nonsense going on in the world. It's my grandma's birthday yesterday. That was nice.
Oh, happy birthday, Grandma.
Talk to her for a little bit.
Yeah.
How are you doing? How's the new year treating you?
Pretty well. Well, most of it has been focusing on Snow Day, so that's going on next weekend. If anybody's interested in listening, check it out. It's this year it's virtual, so it's a virtual improv marathon, and we raise money for local charities such as the Guildless House of Detroit, which is it's a charity that's very important to me because I've had family members who had to deal with cancer, and they do a lot of great work, not just helping the person who was dealing with the cancer themselves, but the family. And I think people forget about, like, when one family member has it, it affects everybody. And it's a great support system. They do a lot of great work. It's named after Gilda Radner. She established it. So it's improvisers helping other improvisers. And I love it.
Yes, it is awesome. So again, that's Snow Day, and the best place for people to visit and find info is on Facebook, right?
Correct. The Snow Day 24-hour marathon, I believe, is the Facebook page. This year we're calling it Snowed In because
right.
Because we're clever. That's what clever people do.
And I think we talked about this.
We had
before, but like sometime maybe in the fall or summer, late summer, early fall, we were joking about whether Snow Day would be virtual or not, and here we are.
Yep. Here we are.
Yeah. So the topic of this episode, we thought would be good for the new year, being focused on being stuck in a rut, or what to do when you're stuck in a rut. Not just stuck in a rut, but also just when you're feeling like you need to kind of refresh or rejuvenate yourself, and maybe set some new goals, or just mix it up. Even if what you're doing is working, if you're feeling like you're doing the same characters or the same energy and moves when you're on stage, or on screen. Like how to just mix it up and keep yourself feeling fresh and lively about the improv and acting that you're doing. So that will be the topic of our episode for this. I don't know what, like, where do you want to start, Bob? Okay. Start with being in a rut, or just generally setting goals?
Okay. Yeah, let's start with setting goals, because I think goals are important, even if you're not in a rut. I think as an artist, your job is to progress, and setting goals is a great way to almost force yourself or trick yourself into progressing. You're making a conscious decision before or during your stage time to do something new and something that people don't recognize in you, or recognize you. You don't want to be that person who is a one-trick pony who does that trick very well, or that you have that thing. Oh, here comes Bob Wieck. He's going to do his 3 characters. And honestly, they might be entertaining, but what else can you do? Push yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, like lately, I didn't even really think about this when we were selecting the topic, but You mentioned doing the same character, and I've been just kind of like sliding into like this gruff guy character. Like,
Yeah.
anytime I have been doing a scene, that guy is my like default right now. So it happens, and
Yeah.
so it's sometimes it's just like unconscious that you start doing that. And yeah, just generally having goals can keep you from unconsciously sliding into that habit.
Let's start there, because sometimes I think people are in a rut and they don't even know it because they're enjoying, you know, they're enjoying the hole they're digging for themselves. You know, like they're still having fun, and and I love that Susan Messing saying if you're in a scene and you're not having fun, you're the asshole. So
Yeah.
so congratulations, you're not an asshole, but you're still doing the same four things, or
Yeah.
And there's this really great exercise, and you should only do it with people you trust and love, and you got to be able to take a critique, but in a loving fashion. If you're in a troupe, have someone impersonate your average scene.
Okay.
Yeah, just like, okay, well, all right, how would Bob do that scene? And if you recognize if they can do it pretty well, then you're probably doing the same. You have tropes, sir.
Yeah.
And work on those. So that's a great way to diagnose it if you're in that kind of trouble. And then you can progress on from there. Or there's a simpler one, is this asking somebody who you trust, like, hey, what is something I don't do on stage that you would like to see?
Yeah. That is great. And like you said, it's surely best with people that you play with a lot. But it just getting an opportunity to kind of like have a reflection of what you do is a really nice way to check in, because it's easier said than done to say that, like, okay, well, you should be conscious of your habits, but habits are often what they are because they're unconscious. So getting someone else or peers to kind of clue you in into what your habits are is really helpful. Let's take a quick pause right here just to say that since we are live streaming and this is about community engagement, we would love if any viewing audience, if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to chime in, whether it's on the topic of being in a rut or setting goals or really anything at all in the improv world.
Because I would hate for someone to be like waiting for a topic to come up that they have a question for.
Yeah. Yeah, with the live streams, we're really just like giving ourselves a starting point, and then happy to go wherever it goes. So if there are any questions or directions that you want to take things, please feel free to chime in. But okay, so I think that's crucial is just finding some way to check in with your habits and what you do a lot and what you don't do often or at all, and then just like starting there to at least be aware of that, because I think earlier on it's really important. And when I say earlier on, I mean maybe like 3 to 5 years of doing improv. I think that it's important to constantly be stepping outside your comfort zones, focusing on being versatile and being able to do anything, and trying different styles and being open to different styles so you can play with anybody and kind of get your gen eds in improv. So really just like checking off the list of like everything and making sure that there's no type of improv that you're like, no, I don't like to do that. Just doing it anyway.
Absolutely.
Eventually, just because you're not doing something doesn't mean that you should. If you know what you like to do or what you're good at and what you want to focus on, but at least being aware of it so that you can choose whether or not to be to have a style or a type of character in your wheelhouse is ideal. Just the awareness.
And I would also like to piggyback on that. If you have go-to characters, that's totally cool as well. Everybody has them. As long as you're not doing the same game with the characters every time you bring them out, I think that's the general rule. But I totally believe everybody has their stock characters. that's fine. It's where do you go after you create those, or what do you do with them? Can you do something like, can you put them in different situations? Can you expand on them? Can you dig deeper into the psyche of these characters you go to? Because you almost create a relationship with these characters. And we are lucky enough that most of the time it's not the same audience watching us over and over again. So we can get away with doing some of the same themes or material, but our goal should be not to. So don't rely on this to get you through it. You should be, this should be fun because you're doing something different, not because you're doing something comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just throw this out here because it's one of my favorite stories relevant to the topic. Our buddies Joe and Travis, who are an improv duo, they at one point did like a 15-week run of shows, and I got to see all those shows. I was working as a house manager, and I got to see all their shows. And I found out like halfway through the run that they had set a goal for themselves to never play the same character twice throughout for as long as they had their run. And that was just a personal goal for themselves, not one that they shared with the audience or anyone. They were just like for themselves, no characters twice. And just having like a kind of unspoken goal can be really helpful and a nice challenge to just like mix it up. Like you said, if you have your wheelhouse and your go-to characters, that's fine too. But just the fact that you mentioned that reminded me of that story. And I think that I always think about that as like, it's a frequent piece of advice of mine to students who are like, how do I just like mix it up? And how do I, what kind of things can I do to either get better at character or just keep myself on my toes when I'm improvising? And that I love that goal. Like for X amount of time, just see how many shows or times you can get up to do a scene and without repeating a character. That's I love that goal, and it led to really cool, fun things for those guys. So,
yeah, I mean, most of us, well, almost everybody who takes improv or studies improv goes to classes, and we learn all these short form games. And most of them are designed to force you to make unusual choices or to pick unusual characters or pick a character you've never done before by either being pimped or having some kind of caveat attached to what you're about to say. And we forget those when we start doing long form. We don't apply those. And I strongly suggest you go back to that, because you spent most of us spent like a year and a half like learning these things, and they can be tools. They don't always have to be exercises. You can use those as we do with weights in the workout room. Like apply those and see if you can create something new. It might be absolute BS that you create, but at least you try something. At least you're trying to push the boundaries of what create a palette that you have, rather than again relying on your same stuff. And I think that's, to me personally, that's how a rut starts. Either you're doing the same stuff until you're so comfortable with it, everybody else finds it boring, or something in your life is going on and you feel uninspired. So like some kind of external thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's many more reasons, but like in my experience, those have been the two. Personally, and as an instructor.
Yeah. And I suppose also I'm trying to think of, in my experience of like being in ruts, what I go to, what I do. It's basically for me, it comes down to two things. I either really go for variety, try to find some way to draw from those types of exercises or like secret rules and goals for myself, to just mix it up or stay dynamic, or go to the other extreme and kind of get like really fixated on one thing. Because I remember for a long time, one of my goals earlier on was like, I want to be like a cartoon character on stage. Just like, do all the things that are afforded you when you don't have the set pieces and costumes and just like do all the things a cartoon can do. And then eventually I kind of like hit a ceiling with that and was like, I think I got everything I need out of that goal. And I switched over to being like, okay, how can I play a straight character or like a really grounded, close to self character? And that was my focus for a really long time. Or at least like a goal when I needed to push myself with a goal. That was my focus, is like, okay, what am I going to focus on for this show? Well, let me do the straight character thing and just play close to self. So yeah, it's like either completely shaking things up and
Right.
being like, what do I never do? Or and let me do as many different things, something I've never done before today. Each time I get a chance to do a scene, something I've never done before, or I'm really fixated on a longer arc of like, ooh, how good can I get at the straight character thing when it's not going well? That's also a challenge, because sometimes I would play a straight character in like in a troupe called Presto Changeo, and that's a very fast moving and sort of like shoot from the hip group.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would try to play straight like grounded subtle in that show, and it just would like kind of grind things to a halt. And so, you know, I also had to figure out like, okay, you learn things from that. You're like, for me, I it's tough because it's like, oh fuck, like it didn't really work.
Right.
But the good thing is that then I'm like, okay, cool, that's a challenge. Then it didn't work. I need to figure out how to make it work. Can I play a grounded character that still has really present energy? Just because having a chance to learn something new about a style can come out of working on it over and over again, if that's your goal.
Yeah. Well, one thing I had an issue with was giving up control, like especially when I was young. So I think that was the biggest. That and eye contact were two of my biggest goals coming up. I remember really like in the middle of a scene, like, why aren't you looking at this person? Like, just always having to remind myself. And
you'll love virtual improv then, Bob.
Oh man. I don't.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary thing, and it got to the point where I think it was a couple years after Go started. I put up a video camera in the back, and I started grading myself. So like I would do a set, like especially if we do a montage, and I would break down like, did I initiate, like how many scenes were there? How many times do I initiate? How many times am I taking the lead? How many times, was there, just, and I would just pick out things. And if there was something I did repeatedly that I didn't like, I try to make that my goal next week. So watching the game tape became like almost a ritual. Like on Monday, like I would perform Sunday night, give myself a day just to enjoy, because I don't like getting notes right after the show. I know I can see why it's important because it's still fresh in your head. But if you got it recorded, then you can do it the day after or something. Give yourself a break.
Yeah, that's fair.
Come back, check out the tape, and don't be too over. I don't know. Don't put the magnifying glass to it, but just be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great subtopic, actually. If we could maybe explore that a little bit, is watching back video of yourself.
Right.
Obviously, for virtual, it's still it's built in. Most of the time, you're recording what you're doing, and it's available for at least a short amount of time afterward, if not permanently. And then, yeah, a lot of people record their shows. You had a particular access to, like, you set up like the standard camera that lives there in the back of the house, and collected not only your own shows but like everybody's shows in an archive. But so you have probably more experience and more ability to watch back game tape. But like, yeah, well, like how useful is it compared to any other kind of like notes or thinking back? And is there like a point when you said you wanted to give yourself a break? Were there points when you're like, oh, maybe this is like hurting more than it's helping?
Yeah, because the thing I don't like about recording improvised shows, like live improvised shows, is you lose the feeling of what it's like in the room. So it's kind of hard to. It's not impossible, but it's a little more difficult to remember what that moment felt like, and you can almost get to a point where you can be a little too hard on yourself for a line or character choice or something that you came up with on the spot.
Yeah.
The benefit of doing improv is the audience should be forgiving because you are making up on the spot. But when you are your own coach, which is probably like the worst coach you can have, because your judge, jury, and executioner is that you're that,
Yeah.
But also, like, it can be helpful because maybe you misheard something, and then you can understand why you misheard it. Like if you're in a multiple, for example, if you're in a multiple person scene and two people talk at the same time, maybe that wasn't on you because no one could have heard that. Not even the camera picked it up.
Yeah.
So it has this good and bad, but I think a really helpful tip is, movement is an issue with a lot of people. I watching as many videotaped live performances I have. If you fast forward and you see the two characters just standing on opposite ends of the stage and they haven't moved, like, here's your first note.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think most of the time I think that's correct. Is that most people could probably benefit to move more or just be more physically dynamic. And it generally adds
Absolutely.
to be more physical. But like you said, the difference between being in the room, sometimes on a camera, it feels like being so zoomed out in the back of the house that it's like, of course it's going to you're not going to, whatever little subtleties you're doing, aren't going to really broadcast. So you don't need to be like a circus clown, just like making the most broad movements with every thing that you do, just because it looks good on camera, right? But like, maybe I like the idea of fast forwarding through and just getting a more a big picture of how often, more so than like in any given moment, are you flapping your arms around or doing cartwheels on stage. It's like, well, it's more of a problem if you didn't do it at any point throughout the show than it is if you had a scene that it didn't, wasn't super physical.
And some other things you can catch is, are you projecting loud enough? If you gave yourself a dramatic pause, was it really a dramatic pause, or does it feel like a dramatic pause? A couple like the subtle things that you can catch on, that you can collect real data, like as far as timing and decibels and whatever. You can really catch that kind of data. I don't recommend being your own coach. It's you're not always that fair to yourself. But if you can be fair to yourself and give yourself actual goals, cool.
Have you ever done like a stop and start watching video like that with a coach giving you notes on a video of a show you did, or you being the coach? Like, have you used it that way before?
No, I would love to though. I would love to. Yeah. I know when I was coaching Brenda, I did something similar to that. Like I didn't do it with them. I recorded them, I collected the data, and then kind of broke it down the next time we met up. Like, here's what I noticed, and honestly, if you're going to do it that way, you should collect like a couple of tapes. So maybe it was just an off night. Well, if you collect 3 in a row, then you can, like, it's a really like, I don't know, nerdy way to doing it, like all the math, but you can't. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah. And also, like, what is unnerdy about improv most of the time anyway, so
you got a point there.
but yeah, yeah, I maybe what I would say is that like if you've never done it, watch yourself back.
Right.
I understand it can be like cringy or
Some
unhelpful for
people,
some
yeah.
people, but give it a shot and just keep an open mind and kind of like, breathe. Don't be like just kind of like relax and try to watch because I think if you've never done it, again, it's mostly about what we said earlier, which is just building your awareness
Yeah.
in a
I
different
mean,
way.
I watch these to catch myself.
Do you say what?
I watch like I watch our broadcasts to see what things
Oh
I
yeah,
can. Yeah.
I should probably do that honestly.
Man, I have so many go-to phrases. Like it's what's that thing? I say that so often. Who says that? Put it on a t-shirt. It's a Bob Wieck exclusive.
It's that thing. Yeah,
What's that thing where you're
it's that thing. It's one of those things where we honestly we both do that. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Any other thoughts or tips on specifically video playback for?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Again, if you're gonna do it, just be fair to yourself.
Yeah. It can be tough. So don't.
Well, I mean, to put it into perspective, record an improv set and have someone who wasn't there watch it, and watch the entertainment value flush. Off their face. Okay. So why would it be any different for you?
Yeah, you have to understand that like it's not about whether it feels like a good show. It's not going to. It's video. I guess this is kind of off topic now, but typically having one camera in the corner of the room is the way to do it. But I've actually seen, there's a couple videos from DIF, the Detroit Improv Festival, that are like multi-camera. I've seen that here and there, and it certain moments translate okay when you do it like that. But most of the time, if it's just like you have an onboard microphone and cameras as far back as it needs to be out of anyone else's way, like it's not going to be a good show. Like it's not about the entertainment value of it watching it back.
I know, to do it right, you have to do it like Middleditch and Schwartz. Have multiple cameras, drones. You got to be mic'd up. A lot of things have to be
mic'd everywhere.
To capture the movement. And last thing about video, our brains are programmed to, because we've been saturated with so many things that have been filmed correctly, movies, television shows, like the production value is top notch. So again, the home camera in the corner of the theater is not going to compare it's going to,
it's
going to be, a little rough.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back to, has that typically been your way of kind of building your own awareness and setting goals in general? Is you use video as a reference point in general?
That, or going to the festivals and being inspired by someone else's style. I mean, most of my performance, like I'm a Detroit guy. I see a lot of Detroit. I don't even go to all the theaters in Detroit as often as I would like to, but I try to consume as much as I can. But it just in a festival, like you have options to seeing like stuff that isn't locals and stuff that is new or maybe old but new to Detroit. I'm thinking about like all the just a couple years of like watching Isaac and Ken and Chad. Like that's been a big influence. Like holy smoke, like clowning. I didn't know what it was, but I know I liked that style of performance, so adding a bit to that to my template was kind of important to me because I kind of like that antagonist play when it's done right. So but also like going back to what you were saying, like I do enjoy playing with everybody. So I want to be able to, my goal is to be the ninja, if you will, being able to get on stage and have a good scene with everybody and anyone, because that's to me, that's the fun part. Like performance is great. but the connections you make with people, that's way more important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned two really great ways to, oh, hi, Pete.
Mm. New name, new skin, baby. I'm gonna make that a thing, James. It's gonna
New name, new skin.
new name, new skin.
Yeah, if we had like a network, like a TV 10-second ad that like before whatever, How I Met Your Mother or something,
Right.
Improv Network, Sundays at 1 p.m. New name, new skin. But you mentioned two great ways to give yourself new perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe open your eyes to some new goals,
Right.
and or self-awareness, which is going to see shows and mixing up who you play with. And I was thinking about, like, jams are a great way to do that, obviously.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes if you're playing with a house team or an indie team, or just whatever regular team that you're playing with, when we may have talked about this in a past episode too, but like, what can tend to happen is that you fall into kind of like roles and chemistry with each other, which can be a really good thing for the group. It can also mean that, like, if you're with a troupe long enough, you're growing, and you might be growing individually, but still kind of filling the same role in the group. So you don't get a chance to kind of like play differently or implement whatever growth and new things that you're learning and taking on. So removing yourself from your usual ensemble, and then just throwing yourself into a jam or
Absolutely.
putting up depending on what kind of stage or screen opportunities you might have, just like thinking of a couple people that you might want to play with, whose styles you really like, or things that you want to do and who other people might have the same goals or play well with, and then just finding an opportunity to do that is a really great way to refresh your playing style and explore and experiment with a new angle on things.
Yeah. And honestly, I would recommend playing with people who haven't been playing that long. Because usually by the time you get to a house team, you're playing with people who are seasoned and they know all the rules and they know all the, and if they don't, they know how to take care of each other. You know how to take care of each other very well and take care of yourselves. Someone who's not as seasoned as someone who's on a house team doesn't have all those tools yet. They're still developing. So it can be a lot more difficult to play with them, but so much more rewarding in some aspects because you get to take care of somebody, you get to help them out, or they might throw a curveball at you that you didn't expect, and it can be a lot of fun. It's kind of like what Oliver and I were talking about, like getting yourself into trouble. You might find yourself in trouble, and to me, that's where some of the best times are created, is when you discover that you accidentally paint yourself in the corner, like, and how am I going to figure out how to get out of this room?
Yep.
And and it's entertaining if you do or if you don't, but you got to try regardless.
Yeah, and that's honestly like really the metaphor in a lot of ways for what we're talking about anyways, is like if you're feeling comfortable, you gotta step outside your comfort zones.
Yeah.
Well, now let me kind of pair that with are there times, I imagine there's times for all of us as well when you're like, let me just go back to basics or something more familiar. Right. Like if you're stepping out too far and you're like, I'm trying to take too big of swings or do two things that are too radical, I'm overthinking it. Sometimes it's best to go back to simplicity and the fundamentals, right?
Absolutely. But that shouldn't stop you from taking that big jump. Let me ask you this. I think we've talked about this, but it was like months ago, and I think I know your answer, but I'm curious. Are you one of those people who, when they find themselves in a rut, take time off? or
Oh,
do you put your head down and walk into the wind?
you know, put my head down and walk into the wind.
Yeah.
There goes James.
Go.
Yeah, in a tornado of leaves. Um, I think that you and I share the have in common that we typically don't take breaks, but it's also relative, right?
Absolutely. Situational. Yeah.
Uh, like even a couple things. So it's not that I don't recommend it. I think that it'd be really important, really healthy to take a step back, take a month off, whatever you need to do to reset. If it's not fun for you, like you
Yeah.
said, if you're not having fun, you're the asshole. And if you're finding yourself being the asshole,
Yeah.
then it might be healthy for you to take a step back until you can reapproach it with renewed love and joy. But I think for me, that's relative, and sometimes I will stop. I've been spoiled with a lot of stage opportunity from early in my career of improv, and so taking a break might equate to like not getting on stage every time I get the chance,
Right.
not burning myself out or spreading myself too thin. And I think that that's important too, is just like um, saying no to opportunities here and there, um, and being more particular about just focusing on like one or two shows for a little while, not cutting it off completely, but just
Yeah.
slowing down or uh, zeroing in on things.
No, that makes sense. And yeah, just to make sure everybody understands, like, I don't judge anybody who needs to take a break. I just know me personally, I have a tendency, if I put something down, I might not come back to it.
Yeah.
So I to me, I have to stick to it and just get through it. I just because that's the way I operate. And if you operate a different way, and we all do because we're different people, and
Yeah.
that's totally cool. No judgment. Yeah, but I think you're right. Like, for people like us who can't take a complete break, pick the few things that you absolutely love doing, because then you can stick to that and still have fun, and then slowly come back to the rest of the stuff. Me personally, like, I don't think I'll ever take a showdown off unless something external happens, like I break a leg or something. Even then, I'll probably be up there in a wheelchair. But I love doing that show. It's one of my favorite. I love doing that show. It makes my night when I get to do them. So I don't see me taking a break for that. But maybe
Well, that's the
doing.
thing though. Like
Yeah.
if you were miserable doing it, then it
Oh,
might be advisable.
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, so that's really the litmus, right? Is like, am I
Yeah.
still enjoying this? And if not, then why are you doing it?
To the point where I had to learn, like, not everybody loves it as much as I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? You took a day off? Like, why? You get to play Showdown.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, and honestly, there's been times moving from Detroit to New York, like I couldn't just jump right into to stage time and the improv community here. Had to work, make friends, and find opportunities and all that. So there have been times, at least since then, where, like it or not, I'm not getting on stage for a couple weeks or a month at a time, and it's definitely, it gives a new perspective once you do take a break. If you're going to take a break, it can be helpful to just kind of like reset the way you think about things. And so there's definitely benefits to it, whether it's because you're kind of restarting or re-entering a community or a new community, or because you decided to take a break. There are definitely benefits to it, if that's what you choose to do. So, and I know lots of people who have taken a break and been like, thank God I did that, and come back and just
Come
been
back.
totally new life. And you know, a new skin.
Well, another reason to take a break, if the only thing you're doing in your life is improv, you really have nothing to bring to the stage. Yeah, and I've done that where, all I did was work and do improv. So I wasn't leading a balanced life of, the other things that you should be enjoying as a human.
Yeah.
So if you have nothing to bring to the stage because you're not out there experiencing things, that's another good reason to maybe pump the brakes a little bit and go do something different. You're in a different kind of rut at that point.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever had an experience where you were obligated to play one night and you just didn't have it in you, but because of your obligation, you had to show up? Is there a way for you? Is there something you do to get over that kind of rut?
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes when it happens to me, it's actually with hosting. I really sometimes get burnt out on hosting, and like, Pete and I, I'm sure Pete can relate to this too, is like, there was maybe like a year and a half, 2 years straight when Pete and I were hosting some kind of Go Labs show like every Wednesday night, and kind of like it would go in cycles, right? Of like, we'd have a hot audience for a few weeks, and then there would be like a stretch where we had like nobody, and it just felt miserable.
Yeah.
And I have to say that is tough when you're like, man, in that case for me, it's like, I can't just bail on hosting the show. But really what I try to do is remind myself, one, Pete's my hosting partner, and like, I'm there for him, and he's probably feeling that way too. And maybe we can gripe together. And yes, Pete is virtually nodding his head. But maybe we can gripe together. But it's better if we find a way to just like kind of get into some bits, riff a little, joke around and cheer each other up. And specifically in the hosting situation, it's also like the people who are playing, we would invite rotating cast and stuff. So for a lot of people, it's like they're looking forward to it. They're it might be they're not there every single week. They're like, I'm doing Go Labs on Wednesday. So it's like not taking that away from them either. And just remembering that like being there for other people, if not for the joy of the show, is my saving grace in those situations, because and there it is. It's if you're not having fun, you're the asshole. Which is basically like, if you're not making it better, you're making it worse. like do one or the other. And which one do you think you want to do?
Absolutely.
What about you? When you're in a rut or just like not feeling it, like how do you snap out of it, or like on a night to night basis, if you're like, man, I'm just feeling off, like how do you kind of shake that off?
Yeah. It hasn't happened to me a lot, but there's been like, hosting can be a bummer sometimes. Like, I pretty much, I have a pre-show ritual I do that kind of gets my energy up, and I try to crank that up as much as I can. I just try to get warmed up, try to get my mind right. And it almost becomes that thing. Like, depending on the situation, I'm either doing it for them, but like 100% all the way, or I'm doing it for me, and I don't think that's a great way to play. But if you can fake it till you make it, because I never really had a bad time on stage. And I have to remind myself when I'm in those moments, like, you love doing this. And as soon as you get on there, you're going to be fine. And you're going to come up with something that you enjoy. and you're going to want to play. It's just taking those 3 steps up the stairs to get onto the stage. And as soon as I get that done, everything falls into place.
Yeah, man, I feel that way about teaching, or not all the time, but what you just described, where it's like, why am I like dreading this or having such anxiety about it? I know that I will, when I get there, I'm gonna love it.
Yeah,
but like teaching here, like I actually had to take a break from teaching because I was stressing out about it so much, and I couldn't even really tell you to this, like. Maybe it's the expectations or just all the other shit that was going on in the hustle. But I just like feeling anxious. But for some reason, like when I'm there, I'm like, this is going great. I don't know what, like, you know what I mean? It's just so weird. Like
wow.
the psychology of not being able to like, just like let go and be like, it's gonna be fun.
Right. I'm so surprised you said that, because you're like always one of my example of people who explain things well. Like that's why we even started doing this, because like, hey, I know how I would say it, but how would James say it? I like, because you're always so precise and you're really great at that kind of stuff. And I say, it's that thing a lot.
That's one of those things.
I mean, I get the concept, but like sometimes that bridge is a little bit wider and longer than it needed to be to get there, but that's fine.
Well, and you know what? It is like everything's easier with a partner, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that. But sometimes that really is that like if it's just me in front of just me hosting a show or just me teaching, and it's very different for me for coaching and directing too. I don't think I ever get sick of coaching, directing. I'm there. I would do lock-ins all day, every day, just coaching and directing. Teaching is a little bit different for whatever reason, but part of the stress is being the only person responsible for the facilitation and clarity of things, and managing a bunch of different perspectives and personalities, and whether it's having just a conversation with somebody, us together, or co-hosting with Pete. That's why, like, for our jams at Go, for a long time it was like just Pete or just Brian Lark.
Yeah.
And then I think I don't know who, maybe it was Andy that was like we gotta start doing this in partners because it's just so much easier.
Oh yeah.
And that's also just improv in general, right? Is like having the group to be there with.
Yeah. Man, the first year Pointless was open, I ran all the jams by myself. Sometimes Matthew would help, but for the most part, and I think it was like that plus the drive there was just, I think that was my rut, because it took up such a big chunk of the day. It was 3 hours of prep for a 45-minute show, and it's like
yeah.
But I mean, I got to meet like a lot of people, so it's like 90% of Brenda I met doing that. So like I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's tough. It's after the fact, it's easy to look back and be like, wow, I'm glad I did all that. But like, when you're burning yourself out or burning the candle at both ends, whatever it is, the commute or just your work schedule, life schedule plus improv, in the moment, it's harder to just be like, this will all be worth it. It'll be great. I'm going to meet so many great people, and I'll look back and be like, I'm glad I didn't take that nap.
Naps.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything, maybe the last thing we can talk about is, I don't think we talked on like books or like other resources, because that's definitely something that at points has really helped me get out of ruts, or set goals, is picking up an improv book. And that's also not for everybody, but like just whether it's digital resources, blogs, books, or anything else. I think that's a really great go-to thing too, is like and again, it's the same principle of like either look for something very familiar to remind you of like the fundamentals, maybe go back to a book that you've already read and remind yourself of some of the stuff that's in there. Or I've also found it really helpful to be like, let me just pick up a book on like written from a perspective that I just am unfamiliar with, and see what I can pick up from that, even if it doesn't, and that might even be like not an improv book, but like a book on just acting or performance or stand-up clown. Those can be really helpful too.
Yeah. So I do the same thing, but I also I love documentaries. So I will watch a documentary and try to make it comedic. Like if I had to do a parody of this, it's a dumb exercise. It's not exactly what you were talking about, but it is a nice
that's awesome.
It is a nice distraction. Like,
yeah,
how would I? Yeah,
that's great because honestly, I'm sure you're learning something from a documentary, and at the same time though, thinking about like how to kind of filter it through your comedic voice or sensibilities. So yeah, that sounds like a fun, exciting way for to mix your improv and just like general learning or.
Yeah. And no stakes. So it's just you at home, just enjoying yourself,
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we covered a lot of good ground in the conversation of getting yourself out of a rut, setting goals.
Episode 1 of our brand new podcast that we just started today went pretty well.
Yeah. New name, new skin, new year. Well, I missed the first one of the new year actually last week, but first one for the two of us together. And great episode, by the way, last week with you.
Thank you.
Love that topic too.
Yeah, that's all Oliver. Like he came up with that, and I was like, "Oh, I want to talk to you about this." Yeah, he's a great guest. He's a great dude. I like Al. I'm an Oliver fan.
Yeah, he gets a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, you know what? When I'm in a rut, I talk to Oliver. That's it. That's the secret, kids. You're welcome.
You
Find yourself an Oliver.
Thanks, Kurt, for joining. Kurt says great episode. Thanks, Ellen, for joining.
Hi, Ellen.
And yeah, hi, Ellen. And then Pete, hang in there, bud. I picture Pete reliving the those moments that I'm talking about on Wednesdays and just being like, ugh.
Yeah. The Pete. Oh man. He's trying to pack at the same time.
Oh yeah. Okay, great. So thanks again for tuning in. You can find the Improv FAQ page on the improvnetwork.org, where you'll see a collection of all of our offerings from lecture episodes to these conversation series on the Improv Network website. You can also find additional resources there, including blogs, and build a profile for yourself for when I'm sure that there are festivals that are still using.
There's virtual festivals.
Festivals. But it's always great to have a profile.
Snow Day.
Yeah. Wait, are you? No, Snow Day's not on the Improv Network though, right?
No, I should have put it on there
next year. But yes, there's plenty of resources on the Improv Network, so make sure you check that out. And we will catch you next time on the Improv Network podcast. Bye.